this back to you. Thank you. There you go. Thanks. No, I have to wait 30 seconds now, I may as well wait. Let's call the meeting to order. Here at Center Grove, our mission is to develop knowledgeable, confident, responsible citizens through inspirational and innovative learning opportunities. We always start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hubbard, would you like to lead us tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. We've been presented with an agenda, and I know it's been made available to the public also. If anyone has any questions on the agenda, now would be the time to ask. If not, do I hear either a question or a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Mr. Alexander. Mr. Hubbard, is your microphone on? And I only say that because I've heard folks at home sometimes can't hear us if we don't have our microphones on, so. All those in favor of adoption of the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0, adopting the agenda. Next, we have a health services report, an update on the COVID-19 pandemic and the school's response to it. I have it's going to be presented by Mrs. Norman. Are you going to be pinch hitting?
Oh, no, I let her have the evening off.
Okay.
It's gonna be a brief report tonight. Ms. Norman did a great job last month, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Just wanted to share an update on where we're at. Obviously, cases are spiking throughout the state, and the positivity rate remains to grow as well. We've seen positive numbers for Center Grove over the past few weeks. Obviously, having a fall break reset week was very, very good for us. And Ms. Parker, if you could scroll down just a little bit to the cases table. One more. I just wanted to remind folks that on our website, at our address/status, Ms. Conrad updates us every week with Ms. Norman's help. And you'll see that since we've returned from fall break, we have 8 new cases as of today. And I guess we still have tomorrow to go through. Over fall break, even though we were out of session, we did receive 2 new cases reported to us. Can't really say if those are student or staff, but they are cases in our buildings. Scroll down one more table for me, Ms. Parker. Thank you. And here also, we've also put out there for folks all of the COVID-related absences. And for us, those are folks who fall into 2 categories. They could be isolated because they have symptoms, or they have a positive case and they are confirmed positive. Or they could be quarantined because they've come in contact with a positive case. Not necessarily at school. Quarantines very frequently happen at work or at home or other situations. But you'll see because of that fall break reset, our COVID-related absences dropped to 38 to start this week. We do anticipate with our new cases for it to return back up over 100, but we're still fairly pleased. COVID-19, as you know, has a little bit longer onset, and so we don't know still fully the ramifications of folks traveling for fall break. We expect some of those cases are starting to come in today, and so we will continue to watch it and provide a report as we can each month. I just want to highlight real quick at the very top too, there's a link to our daily health screening. As we enter the cold and flu season, this is the most important thing we can ask all of our parents and students to do. I think it's on there. Yeah, just scroll down just a little bit more. There you go. Great little chart. There are 6 key symptoms we want all parents to think about with their students and students of the proper age to think about themselves. If their temperature's over 100 degrees, or if they have chills, a sore throat, any shortness of breath or cough, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, a headache, or new loss of taste and smell. Really, it's the most important to start doing that now. If you've kind of been putting it off or relaxing for the past couple of weeks, we really want to make sure folks are taking those screenings to heart and doing those daily. I am very pleased when Ms. Norman informs me that we had a positive case, but we do not have to do contact tracing because the student or staff member identified the symptoms and remained home. That is the best thing we can do. It stops the spread. It helps us keep kids in school. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are there any comments or questions to the report?
Is this where we do our PSA, Mr. Daniels, and remind everyone that
You want me to give my PSA? Yeah, obviously, we're never happy when someone has COVID, but we can't stress enough, as Mr. Taylor has, please, 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 if you think you have it, if you think your child has it, if you think you've been in contact with someone that has it, stay home.
Stay home.
Stay home, get a test. Once you are cleared, come back, but please stay home. And just for clarity, when we looked at the COVID-related absences, that's two different categories. One category are isolation kids. Those are kids with symptoms, hopefully waiting testing. The second are quarantine kids. Those are kids that have come into contact with a positive.
Yes.
So please, we ask you, stay home, stay healthy, do all those things that the CDC's put out. And I know the stuff on our website that Stacy and Amy and Jason and others have put together is just fabulous. Please do everything you can. We want to stay open. We want traditional learning. So that's my PSA. Does anyone else have any questions or comments on top of that?
and if you're awaiting a test, the test results, stay home.
Yep. I do want to say, I left one thing out. I want to thank the board for their time. Right before fall break, we had an opportunity to meet with the county health department. Thought that was a very positive meeting. We were able to express some of our concerns. We also heard from them some positive that we are doing things right and doing it in the way that they expect. So appreciate your time and thank you.
And I think you're probably underselling what your group has done, because from what I heard from them was that we're doing what we should be doing and we're doing a good job of it. So, with all that being said, all the schools are having similar rules. We're out there kind of leading the pack and doing everything we can to try to social distance, to do everything we can. Other than the fact that I keep adjusting my mask and it's really bothering me. There, let's see if that solves it. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Taylor, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
Now it's the time on our public agenda for public comment, and it looks like we have two individuals who've signed up for public comment. We ask that those two individuals limit their time to 3 minutes. We will time it up here and give you kind of a high sign when we're getting close to 30 seconds. It looks like that they're both here on agenda items. Anybody with public comment needs to comment just on agenda items, and these both are. So first I would ask for Mr. Don Struby to please come up to the microphone.
Good evening, Don Struby. I live at 2185 Bodine Place, which is directly behind the area where we're looking to put the new EOC. First, I guess it's always a good thing to have first responders closer, and certainly appreciate everything that those guys do for us every single day. So thanks for that. The downside is that you're putting an EOC right in a residential neighborhood. I mean, literally, my back door to that EOC is going to be about 150 feet. That is not a desirable place to put it right in that residential neighborhood. I think we've sat through the meetings on the water and the drainage, and I think those have been well addressed. The noise, the congestion on Morgantown Road, anybody who's tried to make a left turn onto Morgantown Road, pretty much anytime school is in, will recognize that the traffic in there is very difficult. Right turn, you can make it out. Left turn is a 10 or 15 minute wait trying to get out of there. I can only imagine that the EOC is going to experience a great deal and contribute a great deal to additional traffic concerns. At the end of the day, I would suggest that there are a couple of other places that it could conceivably be placed. It could be placed like right in front of the elementary school on that big flat field that appears to be used for kids soccer and football, which could be in fact done back on the open fields where you're going to put the EOC. So I think there are other options. Would love to see other options. I guess that's about it. And if you have any extra dirt, I'll use whatever I can to mound, because I'm not sure what's going to happen outside the berm you're putting in. And so, I mean, I get a considerable amount of water come across that trail into my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Struby. Next, it looks like, and if I mispronounced your name, I apologize, Tim Kersley? Thank you. Mr. Kersley, the microphone's yours.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and discuss with you some of the concerns we have. The EOC building is, to our minds, placed in a position that's going to impact negatively the quality of life for the people in the immediate vicinity of the new build. The issue for us is not only the disruption that will take place as that building is developed and comes into fruition, but also some significant concerns about noise pollution, light pollution, and general disruption that an EOC would create immediately in a residential area. As Don Struby addressed, Dr. Long was able to alleviate a lot of the concerns we had about the drainage issues that were associated with it, and we're grateful for that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to noise, activity, and general disruption. And then with the widening of Morgantown Road, in conjunction with this, we feel that it's going to be a very aggressive kind of environment that we're going to find ourselves living in, which obviously isn't the thing that we want to see for our houses. And within Brentridge and within Bodine Place in particular, we have a very nice mixed community. We have a lot of senior citizens, and we consider it to be an imposition almost. Although it's not land that belongs to Brentridge, it belongs to the school corporation, there must be a better position to place this building. And that really is our point and the one that we wanted to make. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kersley. Appreciate you both coming and expressing your thoughts tonight. There are no other members of the community that are signed up for public comment. The next issue on the agenda, there are the consent items. Has everyone had the opportunity to look at the consent items?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone have any questions? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the consent items?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Mr. Russell, all those in favor of the consent items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. We're moving on to the action items, and our first action item is a proposal for a school healthcare services agreement. Mr. Jason Taylor, I know, has been working hard on this agreement for some time, and he'll present to us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Really, we began this search for a partner last year, well before this time. So it's been going on for over 12 months. We identified a need to improve our mental health services for not just our students, but also our staff. And as we started talking to the partners that provide those types of services, we realized that there would be some benefit by looking holistically at a comprehensive healthcare partnership. We currently are in a healthcare partnership with IU Health, and they were one of the partners that we did discuss and talk to about this last year. We also looked at Franciscan Health, Johnson Memorial Hospital. And we also talked to Adult and Child, who was our current mental health provider last year. And ultimately, we selected, after a couple rounds of interviews and proposals, to move and look at working with Community Health Network. We started down this path and were prepared to bring a proposal to the board last March when COVID-19 hit, and making a change to the healthcare provider at that time seemed prohibitive and would have been very difficult to find the quality doctor that we were looking to have at our wellness center. And so we've delayed that agreement, and we're ready to bring it back to you this evening. Not much has changed really since March, just a few little things, a few little areas of the contract that you would have reviewed. There's a little more clarification on HIPAA and FERPA, but nothing significant. we're still overall very pleased with the agreement we have. And I wanted to share, overall, this will be a cost savings to the corporation. We've already planned to budget and use some of that cost savings to improve our mental health solutions, including hiring some staff members. On the screen's a slide of some of the new additional services we'll receive from this partnership that we just currently don't have today, or that we'd expand that we may have today. Really, the driving factor, again, like I mentioned, was better mental health services for our students. And while Adult and Child was doing a great job of serving our students who qualified for Medicaid, we really had a big gap of other students who were either insured privately or non-insured. And we wanted to make sure we had a solution for that, and Community did offer one, and ultimately that's going to allow us to serve all students regardless of their insurance status and provide them with mental health services. Dr. Long's been working on that all year with our new Director of School Counseling, Heather Fosnaugh, as well. And Community has a track record, and we've gathered this from references of filling those positions and making sure that we have folks in our buildings when we need them. On the school nursing front, which is also a part of this agreement, this would add one additional permanent sub to float across all of our schools, something that's been a desire of the corporation for multiple years now. Also, because of our student to staff ratios, Community's recommended and adding an additional MA or LPN at the high school and additional part-time at the middle schools. So that will give us a second set of hands in each of those clinics moving forward. Sports medicine, there would be an additional athletic trainer so that each middle school would have full coverage. It would not be a split position. And then the Employee Wellness Center, the health clinic, we'll be able to expand those clinic hours as needed. We do see a demand. We saw a great demand before COVID hit. We anticipate that demand will return. As we made this slide for last spring, we only had EAP services for people enrolled on our health insurance. We did decide to expand that to all employees as COVID hit. But this would actually extend it all the way to any household member of any of our employees would have access to the Employee Assistance Program when needed. That's some great mental health services for those folks. And we can also then look to add a mental health therapist at the clinic. We do have a wellness coach now. We'll retain that, but we could add this in the future. As I mentioned earlier, this is overall a cost savings. We replaced every service that we had, and we expanded many. We have included those cost savings in our budget design for the 2021 budget and would continue to include those as we move forward. And that's it.
Thank you,
Any
Mr.
questions?
Taylor. Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments as it relates to the proposed proposed health agreement?
Yeah, I was trying to find real quick.
Sure.
How long is this agreement?
This will be a 3-year agreement.
From July 21 of this year?
Yes, next year, but yes,
Or
starting next July.
Next July.
At one point in time, Mr. Taylor, there was talk they were gonna push the sports medicine piece back into 2022.
There are clauses.
Is there
yeah.
a driver they pulled, on why they pulled it forward?
Because we had such a tight window, again, we weren't going to approve this until March for a start in July. That would have been very difficult. There's still a clause in there that allows us to hold off on sports medicine if we choose to for another year or two.
Okay.
There would be a slight penalty charged to us, but it would be covered out of those cost savings, so it wouldn't be an additional cost.
That
gives us flexibility for next year and the following.
does the community feel like they'll be ready to go by then?
Yep.
And I'm assuming, we've had a conversation with our current provider, and we're prepared for a smooth transition and handoff.
We did have conversations last year before this began. We would issue notice in December, given that notice in the contract or prior. We've seen some transition at the clinic already. Our doctor that had been there for a while did transition out on July 1st. But the replacement's been really smooth, and there's a doctor or an NP there frequently. So I know my personal family's had good results as well.
I get some head shaking back here from the IU folks that
Sure.
don't agree with that, so
Probably that we haven't given an official notice yet. We would need this contract to be able to be made before we could give an official notice.
got it. Okay.
You say cost savings. I see that as the last item here on the list. Can you give us kind of a scope of how large cost savings we think we may see in the next 2 years?
It would depend on some of those details on whether or not sports medicine moves or not. But it was enough to fund the mental health position that we added already. and fund it out of our current budget. It's something we give proceeds to that. It also is enough money to put aside, a pot of money to help with the students who are uninsured. I don't have the specific amount right now, but it is in the six figures.
6 figures? Not 5 or 7, but 6. Okay. Any other comments or questions with respect to the community health, proposed healthcare agreement? Hearing no other questions, do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the comprehensive school healthcare services agreement between Center Grove and Community Health Network.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Mrs. Toomey, all those in favor of the healthcare services agreement with Community Health, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
4-1, the measure passes. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Looks like you're staying up here for the next one, too.
Ms. Parker did me a favor and let me just kind of stack them up here.
Now we're going to hear a presentation and consider a motion with respect to the statement of benefits and compensation for non-teaching staff. Mr. Taylor, the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Technology, I turn the microphone over to you, sir.
Thank you. This is a typical thing that we bring this time of year. As we finish negotiations and we're working on getting those retro checks and payments out to individuals, we like to take a look at our other employee agreements outside of the master teaching contract and make the appropriate changes that come from year to year. There's a nice summary page here. You also have a full markup version if you need to reference any of the specifics. Most of these changes deal with compensation changes or changes to cost of healthcare insurance. And a few are some typo changes that we've caught, or if from time to time we will add a new benefit or service. And in this situation, one of those is the second box from the bottom for the transportation department. They would like to change some of the way that they compensate the mechanics and establish a level 4 and 5 and change the maintenance supervisor to a fleet manager. So just some changes in the compensation level there. Not a huge cost overall to us. But it will allow us to show some growth and honor some growth and experience in those mechanics positions. And then the final one is, the other thing is we decided, maybe the other agreement, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll wait till I get to the other agreement. I think that's it to highlight from the statement of benefits and changes. This also is the new amounts and compensation based off the 2% raise that the board approved for teachers earlier this month.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do I hear any questions or comments with respect to the statement of benefits and compensation that's being proposed relating to non-teachers? Hearing no comments or questions, do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the revised statement of benefits and compensation as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Russell and Mr. Alexander. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
I think you're still up here.
Yep.
Next, we go to the Certified Staff Handbook, and Mr. Taylor's going to give us a presentation of the changes that are
Again,
being proposed.
Yep. And there's fewer here. This is for all teaching staff and certified staff. We added some language to clarify case conferences and how that time would be calculated. Currently, they earn a portion of their day each time they serve in a case conference outside of the school day, and we needed to make a change to account for that differently in payroll. The same was true of covering class periods. So in the unfortunate event that we cannot find a substitute, or we just need a substitute for a short period of time, we may reassign students to other classrooms for a short period of time, even a period at the high school. And that similarly adjust that compensation. It's to the teacher's benefit to allow them to earn a full day before it rolls. We are adding an SEL specialist position this year, and because of that, we wanted to align that with the 204-day certified calendar. So there's language called out for that. And then in progressive discipline, we are going to carry over something that we've had for the support staff for a while to the certified staff that at levels 1 and 2, which is the lower levels of discipline, those would roll off of an employee's record after 3 years. Anything that's level 3 or higher would still remain.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do I have any questions or comments?
I fairly certain I know the answer because I sat through 80% of these conversations. This has been fully vetted with UTAG and UTAG.
Yep, we've discussed this. We even gave them the ability to make some edits or suggestions. They had many more last year. This one's just 4 this year, so.
Right.
And they only really brought the last one, so.
SEL specialist, just for everyone's edification.
It's a teaching position to help with those mental health services I talked about earlier. It'll actually report to Dr. Long and Heather Fosnaugh and work throughout the entire district, working with students and working with our school social workers.
And is this the position you said we helped fund by our savings?
Yes. Proceeds would be going towards that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I should add, that was a position that we had originally had asked for during the school safety referendum last year. We were able to fund that this year, finally.
And I think we refer to that as Plan A and Plan B. Plan A, we
Exactly.
get the referendum, we put things in right away. Plan B, we find ways to pay for them and do them over time.
Yep, exactly. And we had multiple in the referendum, so this is one, but it's a start.
Great, great. Any other questions or comments in relating to that last topic or anything else? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the certified staff handbook as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Alexander and Mr. Russell. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
I forgot your name. Is it Mr. Taylor?
Thank you. This will be the last one, and then I'll see the floor.
And then you're going to take a seat. Now, you're going to give a presentation on a proposal for the approval of the support staff handbook.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, the microphone's yours again.
Thank you. And this one does have a few lengthier changes, a number of just employee level changes. But then we did add some language that we typically email out once a year. We'll still continue with that, but we wanted to firm it up about how the expectation for work on inclement weather and emergency closing days, along with delays, and how to handle work and time on an e-learning day closure. Obviously, those are becoming more prevalent. We needed to make sure that was formalized and in those agreements. We had realized that our bereavement leave was not consistent across all employee groups, and we wanted to fix that. And so this actually adds a category to levels B and C to make sure that they have a 3-day option for an extended family member. Prior, it was either a 5-day option for immediate or just a 1-day funeral. And so it'll be a nice benefit for folks to have in those tough times. And then we also have changed a lot of terminology change from probationary period to an introductory period for staff. Just a little better semantics and a little better meaning of what that time period is. The length of time is still 60 days and didn't change. That's when employees, after they've completed that introductory period, are eligible for their leave time. And then we also have kind of spread out and provided a scheduled allocation of vacation leave for level C and some personal leave for level B, so that our current language, folks would receive all of the amount, no matter if they started in July or didn't start until the following May. This one kind of gradually gives out personal and vacation leave depending on the employee's start date. Finally, we clarified some compensatory time to distinguish the difference between it and overtime. For folks who don't work a 40-hour week, that was key. And then we clarified the eligibility for the experience incentive. There were just a few things in there that caused us some confusion. We realized that we had not been honoring some retirement payments, and we went back and corrected those, and just wanted to clarify that language. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Are there any comments or questions with respect to the proposed changes to the support staff handbook?
I did like in the actual handbook, it was in pink and very, drew my eye to it pretty quick.
Yeah, we moved it all to Google Docs so we can track all these changes every year as well, so it's much more efficient.
Yeah. I appreciate
Thank you.
the pink there.
Stood out.
Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the support staff handbook as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Mr. Alexander, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, take a seat. Thank you, sir.
He's off the hook.
Next, we're asked to consider a motion to approve a joint escrow agreement for the Emergency Operations Center lease with White River Township Fire Department. Dr. Bill Long, Assistant Superintendent, will be making the presentation this evening. Dr. Long, thank you. The microphone is yours.
Thank you. Tonight, we're asking the board to approve a resolution authorizing a joint escrow account with the White River Township Fire Protection Board and a subsequent sublease agreement with them as we partner with the fire department to construct the Emergency Operations Center. Our attorney has worked out the details with the fire board's attorney, and the White River Township Fire Protection Board will approve the same resolution at their meeting on November 4th, 2020. The joint escrow account allows the White River Township Fire Protection Board to contribute funds of $875,000 towards the construction costs of the Emergency Operations Center. The sublease agreement will allow the White River Township Fire Protection Board to occupy approximately 8,700 square feet of the 16,000 square foot building. Fire department will house an ambulance, a ladder truck, and a staff of 12 firefighters or EMTs, and will share the utility costs with us. The lease is real similar to the lease we have with the White River Township trustee, mainly because the same attorney drew up both leases. The initial term of the lease is for 15 years with 3 additional 5-year terms as long as both parties agree. If you mind, do you want to finish this, or can I answer some of the questions that you guys had before or that were brought up before? I'd be happy to, or if you want to finish this, then I'd be happy to answer why we picked this location.
I think, Dr. Long, if you'd like to respond to some of the citizens' requests, by all means, feel
Sure.
free.
So originally, we had picked the orchard spot across the street from the high school, and as you know, we sent that out to bids, and the bids came back over our budget. So we started looking at other pieces of property that the school owned. We own several lots there on the east side of Morgantown Road, and those were large enough combined to be able to put that spot there. We couldn't put it in front of Center Grove Elementary for numerous reasons. One, it's not a big enough spot. 2, it's right in the congestion where the Center Grove Elementary and the middle school traffic, or the parent drop-off point is. That would be a mess. And 3, that's the only point, or the only place where they can do outdoor PE and where both the 7th and 8th grade A and B football teams practice. So we picked a site that we felt was less expensive for the taxpayers, feel like it was going to save the taxpayers over $400,000, close to $500,000 by changing sites. And by moving it to the north side of Stones Crossing Road, it allows the White River Township Fire Department to contribute funds towards the construction of that. So anyway, we're recommending approval of the joint escrow account and the sublease tonight, the resolution that authorizes that.
Tell you, here tonight, we're all running out of breath talking in our masks.
It's the mask thing, man.
I'm doing the same thing, so I feel your pain.
We need oxygen later.
Right. I have a question. It's north of Stones Crossing Road. And
Yes.
why does that matter that it's north of Stones
So the
Crossing
fire
Road?
boundaries, south of Stones Crossing is Bargersville Fire Department, and north of Stones Crossing is White River Township Fire Department. That's their fire district boundaries.
And remind me too, why do we want to locate this facility so close to elementary, middle, and high schools?
We wanted it on the main campus for a quick response time for a couple of reasons. One, when we had Michael Dorn do our safety assessment, one of his recommendations was to look for ways that we can reduce the response time, because we all know active shooting events and major catastrophes at schools typically last less than 90 seconds, and having a quick response time will save lives. That's why we started looking around the main campus area to have it close by.
Can you tell us who Michael Dorn is, just for those who
Sure,
don't know?
he's the CEO of Safe Havens International. It's the company that we hired to do our safety assessment for the entire corporation.
Now, you talked about the 16,000 square foot facility, 8,600, you said, I believe.
About 8,700 square feet.
8,700 would be White River Township.
Right.
What's in the remaining?
The other part is where the Center Grove Police Department will be. We'll move out of the PRC, Old Maple Grove, and into there. We'll also create a spot where we can monitor all of our cameras, all of our alarms, all from one single location.
And I know you presented this to us when we considered it for the orchard before.
Sure.
I'm just wanting to refresh.
No, that's okay.
the
No,
board
I
and
don't
the
mind.
public before we
I
take
could
votes
probably
on
talk
anything.
about it in my sleep. We've been working on it for so long.
And I know that you can, and I appreciate that. I know that you put a lot of effort into it. Tonight, you're only asking us to put money into a fund, right? We don't have bids received yet?
No, we're asking you to allow us to create an escrow account that would allow the fire department to put their money in with ours. We haven't accepted bids yet. It's out on the street for bids. I think we're talking about November 7th, I believe, if you'll let me look it up real quick, is when we'll accept or when we'll open bids. And then at the November board meeting, we'll bring those to you for approval. Yeah, I'm sorry, November 10th is when we open the bids. And we will hopefully bring something to the board at the next board meeting.
Any other questions or comments from any of the board members?
I have one. Dr. Long, I understand these gentlemen's concerns and they're very legitimate. I know you partnered with White River on Station 53. Have you heard any concerns since that has been built from neighbors or noise or anything that they kind of alluded to, or any other issues with the citizens that are around?
We have not. I don't know if Chief Pell can answer that. Oh, there you are. But I also know that he's looked at the distances from houses based on their various fire departments or where their stations are. And this is honestly one of the farthest away from houses that they have. But I don't want to steal Chief Pell's thunder.
The reason why I asked
want
you is
him to
because I
answer
know
that.
it's right there on the school
Sure.
property, so to speak, so I know you might get a lot of questions or people
Sure.
might call you on that, so I didn't know if you.
Well, and the other thing, and I am stealing his thunder, so.
I just didn't want to get a biased opinion, I wanted to get.
Oh, well, the other thing that Chief Pell's talked about doing is when they pull out, they don't automatically hit their horns, hit their sirens and everything.
So they understand
wait.
they're in a
Right, they know they're in a residential, and quite honestly, that's where they build fire stations, because that's where people need them. You know, we don't build them out in the country. It's like people say to us, why don't you build a school where there aren't any houses? Well, because we need to build them where there are kids. And that's the reason why, you know, having them close by for us for quick response, but it helps cover the whole White River Township as far as protection for ambulances and fires. It's not just for the school. They're not only going to respond to school alarms and stuff. They're going to respond all over White River Township. And of course, they have an agreement with Bargersville, and if needed, they'll cover that area too. So it's beneficial for all of the taxpayers,
Yeah.
not just the Center Grove school community.
Chief Pell, do you mind answering Mr. Hubbard's question? You thought you were just gonna come and watch, and here you get called
He
out.
thought he was eye candy tonight.
So we had no remonstrance to the station itself. In the final step, we had to get a variance for signage because it's backlit signage, which isn't contemplated in our current ordinances. And we had one resident that was concerned about light pollution, and it ended up being an excellent result. They shared their concerns with me and our Fire Protection District Board. We went to the contractor, we added dimmers to the lights and timers, and we added some shielding so that it would shield it away from their property. And I even got feedback from them saying they were very happy with the difference that it made.
Is that something that's in our design?
It's not. Did you want to talk about distance too?
Yeah, I looked at the distances. I've been in the fire service 31 years. I've worked in all kinds of firehouses from the city of Indianapolis to down here. We do typically put our firehouses in residential neighborhoods. We want to be close to population bases. We need to be on roads that provide us good access, because that results in quicker response times. That improves quality of life. At times, it even improves property values because of the quality of life that it brings to the community. People want to be near public safety. And in our current firehouses, we have one station that is about 65 feet from the firehouse. And I got one complaint in the 13 years I've been here, and it was because the trash company picked the dumpster up too early in the morning. So that was easily resolved. We have a great relationship with our neighbors, and I empathize that it can be a little unnerving to not know what a firehouse is going to bring, But I would like for the board and the people in the audience to remember that we're family people and we're living in a residential setting as well. So just as we don't want a police car running red lights and sirens past our firehouse in the middle of the night, we're not gonna do it with our fire trucks. We have downtimes where we turn the speakers off outside. We ask the crews to not play basketball, do things that will create excessive noise. This is not gonna be a training ground. This is gonna be people coming in for shift change in the morning quietly, leaving the next morning, and whatever calls we take during the shift. So I think we have a good history, and this distance between Brent Ridge and this EOC is even greater than it is some of our other firehouses.
So you've only had one complaint the whole time you've ever been with the fire department, and that was it, the dumpster?
I've had the two complaints, the one about the light for the new house, and then the one about the dumpster. Yes, that's exactly right. I'd love being part of the Center Grove community. We have fire and EMS personnel that have grown up here and they care about the community, and they're good, respectful neighbors. And as fire chief, anybody in this community can pick up the phone, call me, or walk in my office and say, hey, I'm not happy, can you please fix it? And we will do our very best to fix it while still providing the best service that we possibly can. And that's what I like about doing life in this community. And I'll make that assurance to anybody here tonight, too.
So if somebody had a complaint about this new firehouse, you would do your best to work with them and try to find a resolution amongst you?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Any other comments or questions?
So I guess just one more of a statement or a comment. As we've been, working with both Bargersville Fire Department and White River Township Fire Department and the county as a whole, the county commissioners have expressed on more than one occasion their happiness in all of the organizations working together for a common cause, and both Bargersville and White River protect our school buildings. So us having a close relationship and partnership with them moving forward becomes, I think, even more paramount, even as we, continue to move forward and investigate, what do we do down at Walnut Grove and some of the other school properties that we have. The other piece of the equation is 185 days a year, there's 8,000 people within this 2 square miles. That's a small town, or a small town in a lot of cases, and the closer we can put the sheriff's department, who will have a substation in the building, the fire department, who will have space in the building, our own police department, who protects those buildings, and the more those organizations work together and create a cohesiveness, I think the better off in the long run the community as a whole is going to be when all those organizations work together. So I've been asked a couple times, what's the driver for combining this? And when we built they moved Station 53 to the property there because they were being evicted due to I-69. It created some unique challenges for them, and we began a partnership at that point that I foresee us continuing with both departments as we move forward.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Any other questions or comments for either Chief Pell or Dr. Long? Chief Pell, I appreciate you. Dr. Long knew he was going to be on the spot, but I appreciate you coming up and being on the spot.
That's what I'm here for.
Seeing no more questions or comments, do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I approve joint escrow agreement and emergency operations lease.
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Toomey, and thank you, Mr. Alexander. All in favor of the motion to approve the joint escrow agreement and emergency operations center lease with the White River Township Fire Department, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. We're gonna do some great things together.
Thank you, Jeremy, I appreciate it.
Dr. Long, you anticipate having the bids back in a couple weeks?
November 10th is the day
November
we
10th.
open them.
Okay.
So are you anticipating then at our next meeting?
Open the bids?
It's the day we open bids, November
That
10th.
have come in.
Yeah.
No, they haven't come in yet. They'll be delivered that day. They'll bring them usually in person, and we'll open them that day in front of people.
Dr. Long, do you anticipate then having a proposal at the next board meeting?
Yes, at the November board meeting. It's our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a consideration of a motion to approve resolutions approving the issuance of bonds and an additional appropriation for the bonds presented by Dr. Paul Gabriel, CFO.
Thank you. This evening, we're requesting the board's approval of a bond issue in the amount of $5,100,000, which we'll use for the purpose of maintenance projects and technology.
I'm sorry, Dr. Gabriel, let me back you up. We're at a 10:28 hearing. I need to officially open the hearing,
Right.
so I
Right.
apologize. I hit the reset button, if I may. This evening's board meeting has been appropriately advertised as a 10:28 preliminary determination hearing on facility improvements, equipment, and land improvements. I'll turn it over to myself to run the hearing. First, I'd like to call Dr. Gabriel to make a presentation about the projects, the financing of the projects, and the actions we're taking this evening. He'll make a brief presentation, then there'll be time for questions and public comment. Thank you, Dr. Gabriel.
Okay. As I was saying, this bond issue is used for maintenance projects and for technology. We've been doing this since about 2009 every year as we look at our budget needs, issuing a set of bonds to assist in these areas. These are typically paid off in 2 years, so that every year we issue a new set, but the bonds from 2 years ago roll off as those payments go away, so that it doesn't necessarily increase the tax rate to issue these bonds. Part of this whole process is a careful analysis of what our needs are. And Mr. Taylor and Dr. Long talk with principals and central office departments about what their plans are for the coming year. And the result of that is a list of specific projects. Pam, if you can move to the slides. So these slides are mostly part of our budget presentation that you would have seen at our last board meeting. This slide shows the technology, shows the maintenance projects that are needed, totaling $2,995,000. And the next slide shows the technology projects that we are needing in the coming year, totaling $2,105,000. And just a few things about the tax rate. Our total tax rate is going to be going up slightly next year. This slide, if you can, show the whole slide, that's good. Shows that our debt service rate has been going up slightly, the balance of our rate has been going down slightly, and the net impact of those two together is that we have maintained a level tax rate less than where we started in 2009. The next slide comes right from the budget presentation and shows you where we've been and what we're proposing. We expect next year's rate to be just slightly less than $1.03. And then, again, just for comparison purposes, we like to show this chart that shows how we compare with other districts in the county. And we are pretty much in the middle of the pack, which is the same spot we've been for many years. So with that background information, I turn the hearing back over to Mr. Daniels.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. This is the appropriate time for members of the public to comment on the facility improvements, equipment, and land improvements discussed by Dr. Gabriel. Are there members of the public who would like to comment? Seeing no members of the public, I now close this public hearing. Are there any board members who have any comments or questions with respect to the presentation by Dr. Gabriel?
Well, I just, basically what you presented are things that improved throughout the school district, right?
That's correct. This
Right.
touches,
It's not just one building.
it touches every building in some fashion or another. Yeah,
Without raising the tax rate.
right, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no more questions or comments, may I have a motion to approve the 1028 preliminary determination resolution presented this evening?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the resolutions approving the issuance of the 2020 bonds for facility improvements, equipping and land improvements, and the resolutions approving an additional appropriation for these bonds.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Russell, and Mrs. Toomey beat you to it, Mr. Alexander.
Sorry about that.
That's
No.
quite all right.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, 5-0. Dr. Gabriel, we're not going to let you go away that easy. Next, we're going to consider the 2021 budget, and Dr. Gabriel has a presentation related thereto. I turn the microphone over to you, Dr. Gabriel.
Thank you. If you can go to the second slide, it shows you a little bit about the progress of the budget. On September 11th, this was advertised on the state gateway website and on our website as appropriately needed to be done. And then at our last board meeting, we had a hearing, and this information was presented. Been very little changes since then. This evening, we're asking the board to actually adopt the various budgets and the resolutions that are included there. I'm just going to hit a couple of highlights that are slightly different. You can flip to slide 5. Our enrollment has changed slightly from when the budget was originally advertised. Our ultimate official enrollment on September the 18th was 8,845. That's an increase of 95 students from last year. Next slide, the enrollment basis of the budget was actually 8,865, and the reason for that is that we closed the budget to any further changes about the middle of August, and that was our prediction of where we would end up at that time. Our enrollment actually ended up being a little bit less than that. Our final enrollment, so if you look at the advertised budget, included an enrollment of 8,865. Our final enrollment was 8,845. That difference of 20 students impacts us by $121,600. So that means we'll be short that much in our budget for next year. And that's, I mean, and the immediate answer to what do we do is that'll have to come from cash balance. So then, if you could turn to slide 18, just, I'm not going to go through the rest of the budget because there have been no changes since it was presented last month. Just like to summarize the key items there, and that is that the education fund and the operations fund are balanced budgets. Our final ADM enrollment, as I mentioned, was 8,845, up 95 students from last year. Our estimated tax rate for next year will be $1.02.6, which is up it was up 1.93 cents from the current tax rate. And our estimate of the annual impact on a typical home of $300,000 is it would increase their taxes by $15 annually. So last slide then, there's a lot more information about the budget available on our website. You have the website address here if you want to have any further information. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We're asking the board to approve the budgets and the resolutions this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Do I hear any questions or comments from the board?
Well, I just have, let's just suppose we're dealing with COVID for another whole year. How could that affect our budget?
I think that if you look at it from two sides, one is the income, the revenue side, how much money we have available. It would appear that will have very little impact because the bulk of our money is based upon our enrollment that's already reported. And we have built in a small decrease for the spring reporting in February when we report it again. So on the revenue side, I don't see much variation or much concern that COVID would continue to impact that. On the expense side, that's where the big variable is. And we have already expended or committed over $800,000 in expenses due to the various things associated with COVID. That includes a lot of things like the equipment to monitor temperature and cleaning equipment and personal protective equipment and additional staff for cleaning. When we add up all those categories, we've spent quite a bit. So the question is, what are we going to spend in addition to that in 2021? And if that happens, we've set aside additional money in our emergency account for next year. And I would hope that that would cover all of that without a problem. If it doesn't, I would say we'd have to go into our cash balance a little bit further for that. I would certainly hope that won't happen. And again, we should have a cash balance over $5 million. So I don't see that as, these are being significant issues. So hopefully, unless there's something that we can't see, if it's just more of the same, I think we'll be in good shape.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Do I hear any other questions or comments as it relates to the budget? Hearing no additional questions or comments, do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the 2021 budgets for all funds as presented, along with the following resolutions. Resolution to adopt the Capital Projects Fund Plan, resolution to adopt the bus replacement plan, resolution for appropriations and tax rate, resolution for blanket appropriations modification.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Those were a lot of resolutions. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander and Mr. Hubbard. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The ayes have it, 4-1. Thank you, Dr. Gabriel. Seeing no more action items, we now move on to other of business. I'll go around the table. Start ladies first. Mrs. Toomey, do you have any other comments?
I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Russell?
I do not at this time.
Mr. Hubbard?
No, sir.
Mr. Alexander?
Nothing at this time, sir.
Dr. Arkanoff?
Yes, sir, thank you.
I just want to give a quick shout out. Shout out to our students. Wear the masks. Great job. Keep it up. Shout out to our athletes and our ECAs that are out there doing things every day. I was really impressed that our superintendent at the last football game, or I'm sorry, not our superintendent, our athletic director at the last football game, along with the IHSA director, went out to midfield, told the whole fans section to put their masks on. I bet we had 80% with them on. After he said it, I think we had about 100%. So let's make it through seasons, let's make it through school, do the right thing, follow the CDC guidelines. They're there for a reason, folks. A shout out and saying, kids, let's hope we make it through all these seasons. And we had a tennis team do amazing things. We had some kids out in quarantine and they were still winning sectionals, regionals, and semi-state. Ivan Smith's a heck of a coach. He's been around since I was here, so just a couple years ago. But ultimately, thanks everybody. Let's keep doing the right thing. That's all I have. The last reminder I have is November 19 is our regular board meeting right here in this very room at 7 o'clock. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second? Thank you, Mr. Alexander and Mr. Russell. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. We're adjourned.